Hi, it's Mrs. Shockley, and today we're going to be reading Chapter 3 from our book Ghost Town at Sundown, written by Mary Pope Osborne. Before we do, though, let's just get a quick recap of where we left off in Chapter 2. So, I'll show you the picture at the end of Chapter 2 when Annie and Jack had went into the general store, and Annie convinced Jack to try on a hat and some boots. And then right before the chapter ended, they heard some weird noise. And Annie said it's piano music. So chapter 3 is called Player Piano. Before we read Player Piano, please remember that as I read, I want you to visualize what is happening in the story. Just like these two kids are visualizing what is happening in their castle book. I'll stop and show you what I'm visualizing at some point in the chapter and see if you can do the same thing too. Okay, chapter 3, Player Piano. Outside, the sad tune played on. It's coming from there, said Annie. She crept toward a building that had a sign with the word hotel on it. Jack limped after her. Annie slowly pushed open a swinging door. They peeked inside. The fading daylight lit a piano in the corner of the room. The keys were moving up and down, but no one was there. Yikes, whispered Annie. A ghost playing the piano. Suddenly, the keys were still. The air got very cold. No, no way, said Jack. There's no such thing as a ghost. We saw one in ancient Egypt, whispered Annie. Yeah, but that was ancient Egypt, said Jack. Even so, his heart raced faster. I'll look it up. Jack pulled out the Wild West book. He found a picture of a piano. He read aloud. Player pianos were popular in the Old West. The piano played automatically when someone pumped its floor pedals. Later, with the help of electricity, the piano played all by itself. Whew! Jack closed the book. I knew there was an answer, he said. It must be electric, and somehow it came on. I didn't know they had electricity in the Wild West, said Annie. They didn't, said Jack. He looked at Annie. Oh man, let's get out of here, he said. So there they are, peeking through the door, and the piano that doesn't have electricity is playing all by itself. Jack and Annie backed out of the hotel. When they got outside, they heard another sound. Horses' hooves thumping against the hard ground. A cloud of dust seemed to be moving towards the town. As it got closer, Jack saw 3 riders. They were herding a small band of horses. So, in my mind, I'm visualizing Annie and Jack standing outside the hotel, and they just see this big cloud of dust, and they hear the horses' hooves stomping on the ground. And then as the dust starts to come closer, they can see that there's 3 people riding on the horses. All right, let's see what happens next. Hide, Jack said. Where? Said Annie. Jack looked around wildly. He saw 2 barrels outside of the hotel. There, he said. Jack and Annie hurried behind the empty barrels. Jack climbed inside one and tried to scrunch down. His hat wouldn't fit. He jumped out of the barrel and threw his hat into the hotel. Mine too, said Annie. Jack grabbed hers and threw it. Then he scrambled back into the barrel, just in time. Jack heard the horses thunder into town. He peeked through a crack in the barrel and saw a blur of cowboys and horses go by. Whoa! 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 Men shouted. Jack heard the horses come to a halt. The men said whoa a couple times, and then it says that the horses came to a halt. What do you think halt means? If you guess stop, then you're right. They stamped and snorted. All he could see were shadows through the crack. Dust covered Jack. He had to sneeze. He pinched his nose. "The creek bed must have dried up," a cowboy yelled. "This town's a ghost." "Yeah, it gives me the shivers," said another. "Let's camp over the rise." Jack really had to sneeze now. He pinched his nose tighter, but he couldn't stop the sneeze. He let out a choked "What was that?" someone said. Just then a loud whinny split the air. Jack saw a beautiful horse rear up. She had no rider or saddle, just a rope around her neck. She was as red as the sunset. She had a wild black mane and white star above her eyes. "We can't keep fighting this one, boss," a cowboy yelled. "Yep, she wants her colt," another said. "We shouldn't have left him behind." So there's the beautiful horse with the star that they're talking about. And there's the cowboys. And here's Jack and Annie hiding in the barrels. Do you think they're going to get discovered? Especially after Jack's sneeze? "He was too slow," a growly voice said. "We'll sell her when we cross the border." That's terrible, thought Jack. He knew Annie must be upset too. He just hoped that she wouldn't jump out of the barrel. But the cowboys pulled the red horse away. The ground rang from the pounding of the hooves as they galloped off. Jack and Annie stood up. They watched the riders disappear into the dust. The pounding faded away. All was quiet again, except for the lazy buzzing of flies. "They were mean to that horse," said Annie, in a low, angry voice. "I know, but there was nothing we could do," said Jack. His boots were killing him. He climbed out of the barrel. "Man, I have to get these off," he said. Jack sat down on the porch of the hotel. He grabbed the foot of one boot and pulled. "Jack," said Annie, "I think there is something we can do." "What?" Jack looked up. A small horse was running down the road. He was red as the wild mother horse. He had the same black mane and a white star above his eyes. A rope was around his neck. He looked very lost. The end. Good chapter. Next time we're going to read chapter 4, which is called Hands Up!